Madam Speaker. I'll note at the outset, and I'm sorry to disappoint the member for Timmins, James Bay, but I am not an old white guy. I am a Conservative, but I am not an old white guy. And I'd also like to point out that the NDP and Liberals have once again used the draconian tool of closure to shut down debate on the bill we're debating tonight, Bill C-35. It's unfortunate that they lack the courage to have an unfettered debate on childcare. They must fear that their one-size-fits-all, Ottawa knows best approach will be rejected once again. I spoke on this bill at second reading in January before it went to the Human Resources Committee for study. At that time, I laid out 4 key principles that I thought the committee should use to strengthen the bill. First, the legislation should find solutions that help parents in the modern economy, not just those working in 9-to-5 industries. Second, the bill should empower parents to make whatever childcare choices that best suit their needs. Third, the legislation should refrain from dictating to provincial governments about how to deliver their childcare services. And fourth, the committee should make recommendations to give families more financial freedom to support any childcare choice they may make. They could start by cancelling the carbon tax and reining in inflationary spending that is driving high interest rates, another hike yesterday, and inflation. With that, I supported sending the bill to committee, where Conservatives brought forward several amendments to enshrine some of these concepts into legislation. But the NDP and Liberals, as they usually do, use their coalition to shut down common-sense Conservative proposals. Those two parties ignored the call of parents who have to hope for a daycare space to open up on a lengthy wait list. They silenced shift workers who need childcare beyond the hours of operation of regulated daycares. They turned a blind eye to parents who prefer to rely on family members for childcare, including many new Canadians. They forgot that Indigenous parents often prefer alternatives to state-run childcare institutions, given their family and historic experiences with residential schools. They ignored parents in rural and remote communities where regulated childcare is often not available. It's true that the NDP Liberal childcare plan has helped some parents, but it is also true that the plan is leaving far too many people behind. Thankfully, there is one party in this House that represents the common sense of the common people. Only the Conservative Party supports a childcare plan that is parent-driven and child-focused. The Conservative vision flows from our belief in small government and big citizens. We respect the right of parents to make childcare decisions that meet their individual needs. That begins by ensuring families have the financial flexibility they need to create the life they dream of for themselves and for their children. To do that, we have to make life more affordable with lower taxes, lower interest rates, and more powerful paychecks. I was part of the previous Conservative government that promoted income splitting for families, implemented a child care tax credit and the universal child care benefit. And we did so on a balanced budget. Remember them? Yeah. The benefit was universal and supported the needs of every child in Canada. Unfortunately, the vision of the NDP Liberal government fails to meet that standard. Their legislation reflects the core belief of left-wing politicians that government is the best solution to societal problems. That's why this bill gives more power to the government to decide who gets childcare support and who will provide those services. That's why they are encroaching on provincial jurisdiction, forcing provinces to give the federal government more control. For example, the childcare agreement with BC will direct $3.2 billion into the childcare system with one key condition, that those dollars only be allocated to run regulated daycares. I expected a more inclusive and modern childcare approach from this Prime Minister. Why? Because it's 2023. His Deputy Prime Minister promised better. When she introduced this childcare plan in her budget, she said, quote, "This is women's liberation. It will mean more women no longer need to choose between motherhood and a career. This is feminist economic policy in action," end quote. So typical of this Liberal government. Big promises, no follow-through. Instead, the Liberal government implemented a program straight out of the 1970s, when women were generally limited to typical 9-to-5 office jobs. Listen to the words of Melissa, an Ontario mother of 3 and entrepreneur who is at her wit's end trying to find daycare. Quote, "I have had my son on a wait list for 3 different daycare spots since before he was born, so I can return to work, but I have had no success. My husband and I both work shifts, and I have a goal of starting up my own foot care business. I would like to have full-time childcare so that I can pursue that goal, but at this point, I am looking for any care that I can get. For now, I'll have to work around my husband's shifts, which is fine, but it makes our budget much tighter with the constantly increasing cost of living," end quote. If Canada really had a feminist economic policy, then striving entrepreneurs like Melissa would be able to find childcare that meets her needs. Speaking as a woman who raised a family amid a career in law and politics, this program is not modern feminist economic policy. I don't know where the Liberals have been for the past 50 years while women have been breaking the glass ceilings of every industry and every realm of life. Women are leaders in the military, policing, medicine, aerospace, engineering, mining, and resource extraction. They are on the cutting edge of research and development. They are bolstering our food supply chains as agricultural producers. They are manufacturing the cars we drive and designing the transit systems that we rely on. Many women are taking up jobs in the skilled trades to help construct the homes and highways that we need to build up our great country. Women are thriving in industries that were once male-dominated, and they need flexible childcare options that meet their needs. Instead, the Liberals and NDP implemented recycled Liberal election promises from the 1980s that fail women working in today's economy. And to make matters worse, the program fails to live up to the standards set by the courts. In 2010, as an administrative law judge with Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, I presided over the Johnston case. Fiona Johnston worked shift as a border services officer. Her childcare preference was to rely on family, only available 3 days a week. She sought accommodation from her employer, requesting that she work full-time with extended shifts. Her employer refused. After hearing testimony from childcare experts, I made a precedent-setting decision that found the CBSA discriminated against Fiona Johnston by failing to accommodate her childcare choices and needs. My decision, later upheld by the Federal Court of Appeal, protected childcare choice as a right for working parents under the ground of family status in the Canadian Human Rights Act. A modern national childcare program should reflect the court ruling by supporting the childcare choices of all Canadian parents. This is a half-hearted effort. Most of it is inconsequential. The one thing it does is establish an advisory council. Conservatives sought to strengthen this section by including private childcare service providers on the council. We also tried to include mandatory reporting of labour shortages in the childcare sector to Parliament. Both of these common-sense amendments were rejected by the coalition partners. I look forward to a day when a Conservative government will better align childcare strategy in a way that respects the choices of all Canadian parents. Thank you, Madam Speaker.